It has been an off-season to remember, and now we are just 1 week away from the 2024 NFL Draft, and it seems like we know one thing for sure. At least we think it's for sure. Caleb Williams expected to go #1 overall. That's the one that's not really in question. Now, our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones, providing us with his one and only mock draft. He has a mock trade to start off this draft. The Vikings and the Chargers swapping spots. Minnesota getting J.J. McCarthy at pick #5. Jonathan Jones himself joining us now on HQ. So, JJ, you have 5 quarterbacks taken in the top 10. Of course, Caleb Williams going first overall. Then there's some questions whether it's going to be Jaden Daniels or Drake May. You went Daniels at that #2 spot. But the one I want to ask you about, Michael Penix Jr. going at 8. Walk us through that decision.
Yeah, interesting one, right? And look, it's a mock draft. Let's all understand that. And every mock draft that you're reading right now, if the Falcons pick at 8, they're taking an edge rusher. They're taking Dallas Turner there at 8. But in my mock, I looked at the Falcons and I said, yeah, they just gave Kirk Cousins a 4-year deal, and he's going to be the guy. There's no question he will be under center the first day of training camp if he's 100% healthy, but certainly in week 1. But Michael Penix Jr. with the Falcons. Look, Kirk Cousins will be a 36-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles tear. Rarely do we see that happen, and when it does, there's not a super high success rate. The Falcons can actually get out of that deal after 2 years, and so there could be some insurance there, right, with the Falcons, a team that since the last years of Matt Ryan have sort of been wandering the quarterback wilderness. They had that bad sort of dalliance with Deshaun Watson a couple of years ago. And then they tried it out with Desmond Ridder, and that lasted a little bit too long. And Marcus Mariota lasted a little bit too long. And so now they go out and they get Kirk Cousins in free agency, and there's no question he's going to be the guy in 2024. But maybe, just maybe, the Falcons that seem really set on offense based off of what they've done the last couple of drafts and free agency, if they aren't feeling defense right there at 8, because I don't see that hole on offense that they have to fill at 8 with a player that would be worth the caliber. Look, a lot of folks around the league really like the way that Michael Penix Jr. spins the football. So I know it's a little outside of the box. It may very well not happen, but I will say this. I've talked with multiple teams around the NFL who strongly believe that Michael Penix Jr. will go in the top half of the first round of the draft, no matter what all you draftniks out there think. So if he's going to go somewhere, why not 8 to the Falcons?
Right before we got on to talk about this, you said, hey, it's my favorite time of year. It's all of us just guessing where these players are going to go. And that's exactly what we're doing this week leading up to the draft. And when you think about the offseason, you have these players that are going through meetings, they go through the combine, and a lot of them, their stock rises, some fall. A player whose stock significantly rose over these last few weeks, J.J. McCarthy. So you have a mock trade in your draft, the Vikings trading up to grab McCarthy. Why is that?
Yeah, it's a couple of reasons. First of all, something that I heard coming out of the combine was that J.J. McCarthy absolutely aced every interview that he was in. Teams have loved him when he has come into the facility. When they talk to some of his teammates and sort of cross-check and cross-reference, everyone raves about him. That's not to say that teammates don't rave about quarterbacks all the time, or that it's unique only to J.J. McCarthy in this draft class. But when you talk about what he brings, the intangibles sort of on and off the field, that's something that I think a lot of teams, I know a lot of teams, are very, very high on. Look, there is really, I was talking with one coach last week who said, when it comes to him throwing the ball, what scares me about my evaluation of J.J. McCarthy is that there's no elite trait. And we're talking about a quarterback. We're talking about a quarterback that you could draft in the top 5 or the top 10. And in your evaluation, you're like, where is his elite trait when it actually comes to performing and executing the job at hand? But everything else, we see right there, the team win and loss. And look, you can say whatever you want about, hey, this guy is a winner. Hey, his teammates love him. But that matters. And in talking with teams around the league, if there is a consensus, I would say certainly Caleb Williams is #1. Jaden Daniels is #2. And for a lot of teams, he's not very far behind Caleb Williams at #2. But when I talk to a lot of teams, it's 3 or 4. It could be Drake. It could be J.J. McCarthy. Michael Penix Jr. sliding up there. All I mean to say is, if we had a third-round grade on J.J. McCarthy last fall, if you thought maybe the bottom half of the first round, maybe 2 months ago, what I'm here to tell you is a lot of teams are very interested in J.J. McCarthy, and you have a Vikings team that maybe they use some heavy play action with head coach Kevin O'Connell and his offensive scheme, and they finally make that trade up by GM Kwesi Adofo-Mensah after they got pick 23, package that, and move up to get their quarterback of the future, and that may very well be J.J. McCarthy.
Very well could be, and I gotta say, in meeting with him and many other quarterbacks over the last few years, he definitely has that charisma about him. He commands a room, so I'm sure that all of these organizations are clearly seeing that as he just moves his way up the draft board on so many people's mocks. Now, with that trade, you have the Chargers now at 11, and with that, you like them going with Brock Bowers. Why?
I love Brock Bowers. Jenny, I know you love Brock Bowers as well. You saw him in person so often, right? I mean, my goodness, what an absolute player. And so you may say, wow, I don't know if he's going to be there at 11. And look, I talked to some teams who do not have a top 10 pick who tell me if they did have a top 10 pick, well, they can assure me that Brock Bowers would not be going to 11. And so right now, you have to believe that at 9, the Chicago Bears ultimately decide to take a wide receiver that's available. Rome Odunze is who I have them getting there. At 10, you have the New York Jets. I have them taking J.C. Latham, the offensive tackle, because they have an older offensive line group. It's a new look group, but eventually you're going to have to, you can't really believe that this is a group that will be there for all 17 games in what may be Aaron Rodgers' only season there. And so you have the Chargers trading down to 11, clearly needing a pass catcher. There is no question about it after the offseason that they just had and sort of shedding so many contracts and quality players there. And you have Brock Bowers, who, let's remember this, the Chargers general manager, Joe Ortiz, he comes from Baltimore. He's really good at the draft, and Baltimore really loves tight ends. When you go back where they're drafting, Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely and many, Hayden Hurst, they took before Lamar Jackson a couple of years ago. So he knows how to evaluate tight ends. There is a value there. And when you can get a high-quality pass catcher who does have some blocking prowess, I think if he's available there at 11 for the Chargers, I don't really think there's any question. He's best player available for a Chargers team that needs the best player available who can catch a ball from Justin Herbert.
And breaking records, you saw the graphic up there, just breaking records all over the place with the SEC. It'll be fun to see what he does at the next level. All right, so you have 7 wide receivers taken in the first round. There's a lot of questions surrounding wide receiver 1. Who's going to go number 1? So, JJ, kind of walk us through how you found separation between these guys.
Well, I'll tell you this. When you look at Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Nabers and talking with folks, I have talked to a number of folks who have Malik Nabers as the top wide receiver when you talk about on the field. I ultimately feel that Marvin Harrison Jr. will be the first wide receiver off the board. I will not be surprised if a team takes Malik Nabers ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr. But you see the top 3, and most folks believe that top 3 is the top 3, whichever order 1 and 2 is, and then you have Rome Odunze there as the 3rd wide receiver. Brian Thomas should be the 4th receiver off the board from LSU, but then after that, I talked with one personnel executive 2 days ago who said it's anyone's best guess about who the 5th wide receiver is at any given team. In fact, 32 teams could have any combination of A.D. Mitchell or Xavier Worthy as number 5. Ladd McConkey, a lot of teams really love, and we haven't even gotten into Keon Coleman or some of the others. And so this right here, because it's my mock and I can make my mock whatever I want, I have the Steelers taking Brian Thomas Jr. because, well, it's the Steelers and they draft wide receivers and they draft them very well. And then right after that, it's the Miami Dolphins, who maybe pass up on some quality players at positions of need like edge or offensive tackle, where, well, it's a speedy guy. It's the fastest wide receiver we've seen at the NFL Scouting Combine, and, well, it's the Miami Dolphins. And look, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, a lot of contract questions that could be coming up sooner rather than later. So go ahead and take care of that position. Start backfilling it a little bit. And then the Bills, of course, after the Stephon Diggs trade, perhaps they are going to want to get a pass catcher there toward the end of the first round. And I also had the Patriots trading back up into the first round because we know that they missed out on Calvin Ridley there in free agency. Just heard from Elliott Wolf, who's the de facto general manager of the Patriots, who said, look, we know that we have NFL caliber wide receivers, but maybe we don't have the wide receivers who can consistently beat elite defenses and coverages. And so I believe that trading back up to make sure you get your guy, if there happens to be a run on those receivers, if you have them slotted in a certain way, that could be something that a Patriots team, or frankly, any of the other teams there in the 30s or so of the top of the second round could come back up when a run on that position comes.
All right, so there are a couple questions with the mock. I think the Michael Penix Jr. going at 8 was one that was in question, and then I got to ask this one. So you have the Broncos drafting a first-round defensive player at number 12. So what's your plan, though, on solving the QB issue there? Where are they going to get that in?
Yeah. Jenny, I love that you just questioned me. You're like, Jonathan, I would have never done this in my mock draft.
I do what I want. This is my mock draft, so I figure you have to have a reason.
No, you know, one of my pet peeves in all of sports commentary and discussion and embracing debate is that when we talk about, that person is not in my Mount Rushmore. Okay, well, who are you taking off the Mount Rushmore to put your person on, right?
Right.
And so when it comes to mock drafts, there are only so many quarterbacks that teams can trade up for, right? And so, first of all, the Bears are taking Caleb Williams. I do not believe that the Washington Commanders are trading out of 2. I believe they're going to take Jaden Daniels. Could the Patriots take Drake May or J.J. McCarthy? Sure. And now there's going to be one other quarterback, 2 other quarterbacks that you can trade up for. But you have to find a dance partner. And so all of these teams, the Raiders can want to go up to 2 and get Jaden Daniels all they want. The Commanders don't have to give it to him. And so in this mock where I look at the Denver Broncos, a team that don't have a ton of resources based off of the last couple of years, I don't know that they have the ammunition to get up to go get one of those players compared to other teams. And so because of that, they're stuck at 12. Could they trade back? Sure. A bunch of teams are going to start to want to trade back as well. So I have them standing pat right there at 12 and taking the best player available, who also happens to be the best defensive player available in Dallas Turner. He fits a need with them. They certainly need to be able to rush the passer a whole lot better than they did this past season. And so that's where it's sort of coming from, where, yeah, they screwed up the quarterback position. They are trying to figure it out. But just because they want to, just because they need to, doesn't mean that they're going to be able to. They're in the first round of the draft. And so in this mock, I have the Vikings going up to get the quarterback that maybe they want. And then after the draft, perhaps, or even during the draft, they could go out and get a quarterback that they're interested in. I will just tell you this. Keep an eye on, and I reported this about a month ago, Zach Wilson with the Denver Broncos. You know, I know that there were some conversations. Those conversations chilled. But once you get closer to the draft, once it gets to Tuesday, to Wednesday, into Thursday, maybe that's when teams say, look, this is our lot in life. This is the best that the offer is going to get, or the best offer that we're going to give. So let's go ahead and execute this trade. So even if the Broncos are unable or unwilling to go up and get their guy, I still believe that they will be able to come away from the draft with a quarterback, be it a veteran like a Zach Wilson for a day 3 pick swap, or you wait till day 2. And maybe there's a Spencer Rattler waiting for you there in the 3rd round that a coach there really likes, or something like that. Just because they can't get up there doesn't mean they can't get a quarterback.
All right. I'm sure we'll be calling you back when the Zach Wilson to the Broncos situation goes down. Jonathan Jones with his one and only mock draft. You did it, JJ. Proud of you, buddy. As we take a look at number 11 through 20 on this, we were just talking about what the Broncos are going to do. You see Dallas Turner at number 12 going to the Broncos, the edge out of Alabama. You see a little run on corners as well with Arnold Mitchell and Kool-Aid McKinstry going 15, 16, and 17 as we take a look at 21 through 32. Making sure we were getting them all in there on that. And, of course, JJ doing his part. He said this is going to be his one and only, just guessing where all of these players are going to end up. Ladd McConkey got a little bit of love from JJ going 28 to the Bills.